Hi, my name is Emily Olman, and I'm the founder of Hopscotch Interactive. It's a media and marketing services company, and our business is promoting extraordinary spaces. So I'm doing that in 3D and in VR. I'm a Matterport service partner. So I specialize in Matterport photography. I also work with 360 photographers, and my business is understanding every solution that's on the market. I'm totally platform agnostic, so trying to understand any new technology that's coming, how's it going to help people sell a space, share a space, engage with that space. And so I'm really excited about this. My background's in the video game industry and in Japanese animation and media sales. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Nakagoshi. I'm the Northwest Creative Media Leader at Gensler. If you're not familiar, Gensler is an international architecture and interior design firm. My background is in sort of building information modeling, so that's like 3D data to our drawing sets and giving it smart information so that way when it goes from all phases of construction, from design and construction, it's done efficiently. And also in computer graphics visualization. And so naturally when virtual reality came about, it kind of bridged that gap. So my main role right now is integrating virtual reality and augmented reality technologies into our design practice and making it part of just how we design. And if the tools, and similar to Emily, it's keeping everything agnostic, right? If the tool works, if the technology works, we'll adopt it. If it's not fit for our industry, then we'll try and seek out the next best tech that's about to come out of this coast.
Hi. My normal voice is louder than that. Okay. Hi, I'm Mo, and I'm CEO of HoloBuilder. My background is I'm a tech guy. I build all the technologies which are used for augmented reality, virtual reality. But now with our company HoloBuilder, we want to give the power to use 360 virtual reality to the people, so that everybody can use it, not just the high-end stuff with a Matterport. And it's mostly used in construction and real estate, what we do. So people buy a 360 camera, make the pictures, connect them to like a Google Street View together, so they can go on and see their own property, share it, and also make time travel, and not just spacious walkthroughs.
Great, thank you guys. And just brief intro, I'm Thomas Eagleson. I work for Accenture as a digital strategy and operations consultant. And I am exploring ways Bitcoin, AI, and virtual reality is shaping the technology world and what it can do for the industries that I've worked in, such as financial services, healthcare, and public services. So with that said, let's jump right in. And based on your observations, where is virtual reality in the real estate industry, and how will it shape it moving forward? Let's start.
Okay. So where is virtual reality at in the real estate industry? I think it's in a very early stage, to be honest. And I think that moving forward, what you'll see is, in many regards, a bit of a Trojan horse with the Matterport technology, as one example. And I think that if I'm going to predict the future, with Matterport, for instance, having hundreds of thousands of models already online, and those may be converted to VR at the click of a button coming this year. And so I think that people will get into VR for real estate almost by happenstance. Like, they won't realize that it's happening, and then they'll start to see it everywhere. So that's kind of where I think it's heading. And but I do think we're just at the very beginning, and people don't know yet, how to apply it, how to use it. So it's going to be the standard, and because it is such an amazing sales tool, and we are definitely on that path.
So my take is slightly different because it's the design, construction, and architecture and interior side versus the built real estate side. But VR is something, augmented reality, something we've adopted fairly early. But of course, it's an ever-evolving technology. But I think what we saw and what it's doing currently is promising, the ability to see one-to-one scale. Traditionally, we have drawings, plans, sections, even 3D visualization renderings or animations. You can do so much, but to be able to put someone in that space, and especially when it's an unbuilt space where you can make design decisions, financial decisions, material, lighting, those are all things that we're able to do now at the early set of what this technology is doing. So.
I think also it's very early, but I think already people can experience it as I see a lot of cardboards around. And if you just you want to get a new apartment, you can go to Street View, go to the street, put it in a cardboard mode, look around. It's much better than just normal Street View, how your house is looking from the outside, or what you're seeing on the street, and see it virtually and walk through it. So this gives you a feeling of the surrounding already today, which you can use in a cardboard, which is the first step in VR. And then I think in the next 2 years there will be a big jump as we get more headsets and more content is produced.
How have you seen it used as a marketing tool? And Emily, I think that you want to say something as well, as I think you'd be great to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in terms of VR being used as a marketing tool, it's used in two ways. Of course, it's used when somebody can't actually physically visit a space and they want to see that space, or it's like a teaser for that space. And so a good example would be maybe you have an overseas buyer who wants to look at a house that they're thinking about buying here in San Francisco, and if they're able to look at that in 3D or in VR, they can experience that from afar. The other way that VR is being used is actually with residential real estate, commercial real estate, is to get more listings. It's an extremely competitive market, and I'm sure we've all had experiences, in the real estate industry, and are coming across a listing of some house that we'd like to move into, and what ends up happening is that, anyway, for realtors, it is so competitive for them to get the listing, and so that I think that it's just going to keep pushing this and pushing it more, because it's a great tool, and it really differentiates what you can offer to your clients. So, yeah.
And then in architecture and construction, Adam and Mo, how practical is it to use either to sell a potential idea and vision, and has it been used, and what examples do you have?
Yeah, so it's definitely one of our greatest tools that, of course, we can always pull out at the end of a presentation and kind of wow the client. And it's also great when we have a client that's an active client, we're going through the design process, is we can do design studies. The great end is where we can do final renderings in VR, or we can do like a gaming environment that's built in Unity or Unreal that's really well textured and lit, and you can navigate the space. But we also want to be able to put the client through the design process, and they can know that maybe it's just a simple colored model with the lighting that's in there, and they can look past that part and they can just see their space, right? They're not needing to feel like it's a finished product, but they can understand what it's going to feel like in regards to scale and proportion, into form, and all those sorts of things. And it's definitely being applied on a lot of our active projects and things like our spec buildings that we build, spec office buildings. So when we're looking for potential clients, that's where you may start looking at it as a marketing piece. So that you would take those design iterations and you just continually evolve them, you apply those materials, and you start using them as marketing pieces where you could have branded Google Cardboards, you could use the Gear VRs and have a marketing center, because often when you have a building that's under construction, you'll have a marketing center that's built usually in the space where you can go and experience what each floor is going to be, but traditionally you couldn't go up to those floors unless you're doing it virtually, and now you could put someone on their penthouse view of any tower wherever you want to build in the world.
So let's continue adding to the question. And Mo, have you had any circumstances and situations where the VR experience kind of sold what you were trying to say and helped them really understand, the client understand what you're trying to get across?
In our case, we have just not clients, we have customers who take our technology, like architects or other real estate people, to do the work. But what they have done is, one good example is they had clients on a big project and they're going forward and they want to communicate, okay, this is like this BIM, you have like a 3D model of a house, and then you go through time so that you get your construction site built up, and they want that they're still patient as you build up the house. So what they did is they showed them like the 3D models, and then they surprised them in VR with the 360 pictures. So this is what we sold you 6 months ago, and these are the steps so you can go through time. This was like after 2 weeks, there was nothing there, and now you can look around on the earth, and now you have more walls, and this is what is the steps. So somebody's very excited, oh, this project is going along, and every step, and everybody's really keep happy, because they can really see what is going on and what is happening on a project, and it's not like very virtual. Even it's in virtual reality, it's not the 3D model, so you can mix reality.
Adam, Emily, any time when you looked at it and you're like, virtual reality made this happen?
Well, I'll actually give a specific project example. There's a lobby that we're designing, and it was in an office building. So when we have a problem with it, you present the client with plans, elevation, you try and do as much as you can with traditional 2D mediums. And they're saying, oh, well, we're concerned because the security that would be at the desk may not have a proper line of sight to the front door, to the elevators, to the employee stair, and as well to the door that's coming from the parking garage, which is basically around the side of the core that leads to the elevators. So I worked with the team, and we implemented this in a virtual reality setting. What we did was we put 5 stationary points, fixed points, behind the security desk as though the person walked from point A to point B. They go inside the Gear VR, they swipe through the 5 images, and through those images they can say, oh, we can actually still maintain all those lines of sight. So it's a very clear decision-making tool, and from there you move forward. You don't spend weeks redesigning an entire building lobby, which they don't want to see that at service fee, and we also get the design that we initially designed approved, and the project moves forward.
I've worked in construction, managing a project, and when you have to make the smallest change, it's incredible how expensive it could be. When if you knew that change when you were building it, it's like negligible. They won't even charge the client.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that my experience is that it's been pretty much a 100% closing ratio with everyone that I've shown it to. I haven't shown it to anybody yet who has said, boy, I really don't want this. And I think that the challenge that we face with VR, and these guys can also talk about that, some of the things that might be holding it back would be just people's comfort with having something on their face. So if you're using a Google Cardboard or you're using a Gear VR and you're actually blocking your view, of course you're seeing something else, but some people do experience physical side effects from that. They feel a little bit queasy, or it just makes them feel weird. And so I think that that's kind of what's holding it back. But in principle, the ability for somebody to sort of teleport, if you will, and be in a totally different environment, when they see that for the first time, when they experience this magic of navigating through a space with their eyes. So to differentiate between, for instance, Gear VR, you're using your eyesight to navigate through a space, right? And so people feel this amazing empowerment when they do that too. So I think that there's this aha, this is incredible coolness, and then there's also just the, like, I want that. It's amazing. So, yeah.
Great. And being a virtual reality consultant, Emily, how do you approach clients and let them know that they need virtual reality?
It's really funny because it's this ironic thing about VR, which is that you have to try it and then you're convinced. So really, I sometimes I don't even talk about it. I just bring it with me and show it to them. And
your own contact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you're a consultant. You're coming in and you're saying, check this out. This is awesome. You should try this. So that's the way I do it. It's not a hard sell. It's like they're gonna either like it and respond to it, or they won't. But if you have it and you can show it to them, they'll like it. People do contact me and ask for it, but primarily when I'm bringing it up, I just, I say, hey, check this out.
So other than virtual reality technologies, what other tools are you currently using, like 3D visualization, Matterport, drones, to help a client understand the visual of either the architecture architecture or the construction or the actual property? We'll start with Mo.
The good thing at HoloBuilder, so we can mix all this together. So we have clients who do 3D scans with a drone. So they fly, they have a spatial area around the house or other outside properties. So then they bring a 360 picture into it, or they can bring in a 3D model, put it on top of it, so to show it, so this mixing of different kind of content. This makes it for the clients more realistic, because then you have different things. Someone is a little bit 3D, and then you go through it. So I think drones is great, everything which makes a laser scan or like a 3D scan with Metaport, and then mixing it with this very simple pictures, it's very powerful. So the mix of the three things is very great.
So within the design industry, I mean, it's really, we're looking to play with any toy under the sun, right, that's going to get us a better design delivery to the client. You know, we want to make sure that they're not only wowed, that we, of course that's great, but we want to make sure that they can see the vision that we see as designers. Just as a designer of anything, it could be a user interface or an application, I mean, you want to make sure that the end user is getting what you wanted out of it, right? So that's what we're trying to do with our designs. And we're using, of course, everything, like drones for both scanning as well as, cinematography and site photos, understanding the site as it goes across time-lapse, as the construction is being built. We're using virtual reality, we're using the fixed points, we're using the same services that they're mentioning, maybe different uses, but we're obviously investigating those as well because there's, the post-construction or post-occupancy where we want to capture those spaces. And also augmented reality, it's kind of like that next feat that we're trying to tackle right now, and it's how we get the designers to engage on a collaborative level, because the social and collaboration part of it is the most challenging when you have an ancient, display on your face, right? Like you can't see someone else. So by putting on a HoloLens, for instance, we're using that to be able to walk down a table which has literally as many as you want holographic representations of your design options. So you could quickly iterate. And while we had 3D printing, 3D printing comes at a cost, where holographic images, it can literally just be spit right out of the 3D program you're already generating, all these designs with.
Yeah. So for me, it's also the same. Anything that I feel will be a better display for my clients, it depends on what they want to do with it. Are they going to have it live on their website? Are they going to have this be something that they have their clients come in and look at in their offices? Because I'm doing media content as well, sometimes I'm creating a VR experience that then my clients are going to show to other people. So it's my clients' clients that I'm really interested in. Who are they? What's their audience? And what are they trying to accomplish? And so for some people that might mean drone, that might mean video, which can be edited and has emotion. For other clients, it may mean that a 3D tour where they're able to navigate themselves is the best. It's all over the map. I think that's one of the challenges also, is that since if you go online right now and you look at, for instance, let's take residential real estate, and you look at the houses for sale, you're going to see that every individual broker, every individual realtor has their own unique way of presenting a space. And because of that, it's totally fragmented. And people will call a virtual tour, something that's basically just a slideshow. So because the language hasn't really been defined, I think that it's really hard to know. But anyway, I like experimenting. I like trying different technology, 360 and 3D VR. Yeah, so go ahead.
That's a good example. So we're seeing people uploading content from around the world on our platform. So we see cultural differences. So we see in Taiwan, for example, people really put a virtual tour together, but then they put music into it. So you go there, you have a very live music, and the realtor is always in the picture, smiling and showing himself, which in the US, everybody just put a camera there and it's not seen in the picture. So they're showing themselves off, you have the music and some more information. So this is really a difference how they create content or work with content, where in the US still, or Western Europe is still just making the pictures in there, where you dare try to make it more immersive for their clients, still in Asia?
That's a great example, and before I dig deeper into that, and as they talk, I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure you do too, so whatever you want to ask, please mark the question down, and we'll stop at halfway, ask some questions, and continue. So, you said something very interesting. In Asia, they're picking it up much faster. Why do you think that adoption is occurring that way? What do you think will get it going for the US?
I'm not an Asia expert, but we're seeing it even with AR and VR. It's much longer there. Part of the culture, part of what people use and do with mobile phones, did with AR, was much more than people are doing now. Even barcodes or scanning stuff. So it's much faster adoptions. Times there, and people are willing to use tech, so they are not afraid using. So they're more in experimenting. So I'm showing something and testing it without losing face. Here, rate are saying, oh, it must be very conservative, but they can say, oh no, when I do this thing, maybe I get more clients, I can sell more. So there's openness with technology to go and show it's different than here.
Totally, definitely. Any other ideas? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll kind of add to that. So again, I'm not going to necessarily speak on cultures of why they adopt it, more or less. But a great point to what Mo said earlier about the HTC Vive when we were talking was that people get in there, right? It's very natural. They do it, and it's on the market. People have been using it, and there's not a whole lot of complaints necessarily. You don't see people just telling you it's the worst thing in the world. Well, as far as from a technology standpoint, they're telling you why it's the best thing. Or tilt brush is just mind-blowing. And I think one thing that people are oftentimes maybe afraid of is that the frame rate's going to be low, or the experience is going to go well, or the computer is going to freeze up, so they don't want to put that in front of the client, right? But I think maybe other cultures have been more willing to, or other individuals are willing to take that risk and know that the technology is still early enough. And I think that's kind of on the responsibility of the person delivering the experience is educate your client or your consumer or whoever the user is prior to putting them into that headset, right? If you get in the room, don't just throw it on their head and just say, what do you see? Let them know, hey, you're about to experience this. It's like if you go to a movie, right? Usually you see the trailer before, so you kind of have an idea of what you're about to see. So if you're going to go into a VR experience, give them a little preface to what to expect, that it may not be that realistic trailer that you saw online, but that this is going to allow you to understand the light or the scale or lines of sight, as I mentioned, whatever that may be.
So Emily, how would you add to that? Adding to the question, how do you reach the mainstream consumer here in the US outside of differentiating and being different from what Asia's doing?
Well, I think since we're talking pretty generally in that sense, like how do you get VR to become more mainstream, I'm pretty sure you've all noticed that on Facebook now there's 360, and that, I think it was June 9th, they basically rolled that out to all of Facebook. And so I think that it's very similar to just the way that these social media sites are going to integrate things. It's just going to suddenly be something you don't remember not having. That it's just going to feel like part of the culture, and this is the way that we do it, and it's the default. And what will happen is that in the next 18 months, cell phones are going to start having 360 cameras built in, and so as soon as you have these first generation phones, like as soon as the iPhone has the 360 capability, which right now you can get an add-on to it and you can make your iPhone 360. But as soon, or you can use Street View, maybe people don't even know they actually already have it, right? So everybody in this room who has a smartphone can make 360s. And that can be VR. So I think it's education, and I think it's just once it becomes mainstream technology, you won't remember it being any other way.
Sure. So other than virtual reality technologies, can you explain 3D technology a little bit and how that's different from virtual reality and how you can use the same platforms and the same technologies to build and create content in both?
So I think that's pretty well suited for me. Basically, within architecture and interiors, we started with hand drafting. You can look up plenty of funny images of people literally drawing on a floor the size of this room, just to map out a city urban planning project or something of that nature. And that sort of, as time progressed, we went into computer-aided drawing, which is known as CAD drawing. And then we basically moved into the revolution of 3D data, right? Everything is now done three-dimensionally. So there's many software applications out there, SketchUp, Rhinoceros, Revit, which is a major tool in our industry. And what these are allowing us to do is study the design, view it, 3D print it, and just build it as we would construct it. Design it as you would construct it, and be able to leverage that technology through previously 3D visualization. And then when virtual reality and augmented reality came about, it was pretty much just how do we translate that data into these new software? And it's just a translation of data. And from that, you just then trying to figure out how you can work with those developers and say, look, we build these programs. What parts can you take from these SDKs to be able to build in lighting, texturing, a virtual reality experience, collisions, things like you need in a gaming environment, and they pretty much are seamless. Right now, the gaming and the entertainment industry is where virtual reality is kind of seen as the money or the market for it. However, the design industry is, I think, going to be booming from this, because to be able to see something before it's built, like I mentioned earlier, that's, I think, the greatest benefit to this technology.
Okay, so I want to ask the audience really quickly, how many of you know that your company is using 3D technology, virtual reality, to present their material? I know I asked if anyone's working in VR, but how many know that their company is doing something in the space? Please raise your hand. So we have about 5 hands. So everyone else, are you not sure? My question would be, are you not sure if they're working on anything in virtual reality, or do you know that they're not? Because I know a lot of companies are testing with it, and I'm curious to kind of understand what you guys think when you think your company, if you're already not. And with that, when do you think we're going to reach the 50%, 60%, where most companies are using VR and 3D and everyone else is trying to catch up, and that's when we have a quick move into virtual reality, mainstream, very fast mainstream adoption. So in a year, 2 years.
Do you want to talk about that? I have an idea about it, but go ahead.
I think one thing is to understand what we talked before. The question is that we have like the 360 pictures on the one side, which is on Facebook already, and then there's total immersive thing in VR where you think you're living there. So you totally lose reality. So you think you're there, and if you came out, you're very disturbed that you change realities, really. In between, we will see moving from 360 pictures to that area with the smartphones, as you mentioned. A lot of people will do, like Lenovo will bringing the smartphone with the depth scans, where you can do 3D scans already, so that we will have a lot for design processes to scan and share, and then 3D print it afterwards. Yeah? So you can test a lot with these things. So we will be step by step going from scanning with different apps like Trino, or the new phones coming with depth camera this year already. This will start in the 3D space. 360 cameras, and LG giving away with their phones a 360 camera now. So this is happening today. With the gear, we have a lot of things going on. And this year will happen a lot. So we will have the media around. So it will be like Web 1.0 is this year, I think. I think end of next year, because we're much faster. We will reach the space where we go to VR 2.0, where everybody will start creating themselves content and sharing content, and we will participating somehow in it. The tools are out there, and then with the pushing from social media and from other side, from the hardware part, where people push new technology to sell more because they have to innovate their phones and bring it forward. And iPhone, definitely Apple is invested so much into it. They will bring 1 or 2 things, which we put it in California especially.
Yeah, it seems a lot of investment has gone into virtual reality in the past year and a half, and seeing billions and billions of dollars poured in from Magically, that has a valuation of $4.5 billion and has sold nothing, to other companies like Oculus being bought out for $2 billion, and just now implementing video two years after on Facebook. It seems like a very big bet. And if content is just being created and the hardware is just now getting out there this spring, Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, it's amazing to try to understand exactly where the industry will go when we don't have that much consumer adoption, but there's a lot of technology to build that. So I think to that, do you think it's a big bet on a lot of research? Do you think it's a lot of nerds getting excited and thinking it's going to be the next big technology, just like we might have seen with Bitcoin 2 years ago and other technologies?
I think one other thing that's really important is obviously, apart from just content, is the hardware itself, right? There's a lot of limitations with technology. Like the reason why virtual reality has been around for a very long time, if you look back at Wikipedia, sort of, if you look back to where it started, but it wasn't until like the last 2.5 years that technology could really support it, could actually drive the experiences at proper frame rates and proper resolutions to where you feel comfortable. And I think right now one of the limitations to that is the hardware is not cheap. I mean, you're talking $600 to $800 for these hardware. A lot of them you have to be tethered to a computer. The computer has to be quite powerful or robust. And that's not ideal for the world, right? That's not ideal for every user to become an adopter. Not to say that people are like this, but maybe somebody only has a cell phone. And I think just using that as an example, what's going to need to happen, I think, is this really becomes a web-based type application where these things could actually run in the internet. Like a lot of the stuff I've learned about Google and Mozilla doing the web VR, I mean, when this stuff can run in the interface and run in the browser at proper frame rates and do all that sort of, all the technology side of it, that's when I think it's going to hit mainstream. Because then what you need to do as a user, you just need that end device. You just need the controller, you just need whatever that is. But you're not responsible for maintaining that hardware, which is a lot of the challenge, right? We're continually investing in what's the next, next hardware, next software, next this, next that, so.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be something that's available across the board. So right now, if you want to use Gear VR, you have to have an Android phone. You have to have an Android device. And a lot of people don't have that. I had to go buy one so that I could use my Gear VR, right? So, and in the same regard, you can't view the 360 unless you're using a Chrome browser. And so once it's actually functioning well on all of these different platforms, then it just creates that opportunity for everybody to use it. I got sent, it's not real estate related, but I did get sent a Snapchat thing with a picture of my niece with an AR drawing on her face, right? So she's doing all this, it's all this animation in AR. And so again, they don't think of it as AR. They didn't send it to me because it was AR. They sent it to me because it was cool. And so I really think it has to do with people just experiencing it and liking it and sharing that experience.
And I think Snapchat is doing great work here as an AR platform, so they're buying so many computer vision startups and other AR companies at the moment. So this is where it gets very seamless for the people.
And that's a great segue into what about augmented reality? Do you see augmented reality actually being more substantial than virtual reality? Because one way I've heard it described is virtual reality could be like the next TV, next sit down and entertain yourself, and augmented reality could be the next cell phone.
I think that's a pretty good point. I think from the design perspective, it definitely is where I see us moving towards as far as a design process tool, right? Because the main thing we want to do as designers is collaborate. I mean, to be in a space or create something, even if you eventually have that social aspect where you could see, an avatar of somebody else, like that's still not how you want to work. Like even now, there's designers where drawing on an iPad, even with the Apple Pencil, they still say this is not paper and pen. Like I'm only paper and pen, and being able to have that augmented reality where you can manipulate it, possibly use like tools that you're used to, and those can become targets or triggers or ways to navigate the space. I think that's the most natural way. And of course, the HoloLens, right? If you look up pictures of someone wearing a HoloLens, yes, it doesn't necessarily look like the most comfortable or light thing that's sitting on your head, but again, it's first-gen technology, and as this stuff evolves, I think that will go away. The barriers of that will go away, and then it'll just be another layer that's embedded on sort of your life.
And I think if Magic Leap keeps their promises, there's no difference between VR, AR, or everything. So it's just there.
Magic Leap keeps their promises. Yeah, we'll see whales flying everywhere. Anyone see, you guys see the demo that they have? It's just a whale. What?
Splashing on the gym
Yeah,
floor.
it's
Yeah,
splashing
so
on
it
the
splashes
gym floor.
on the
And
gym
there's
floor.
like an elephant in someone's hand, so
Yeah.
like a butterfly.
That's right, and that's all, that's the entire demo. So, okay, with that said, are there any questions the audience would like to ask before I move on to some other questions?
Sure. Anyone like to ask some questions? Okay. Come on and stand like that. And then face this way so the audience can. Because we can't get them on to you.
Okay. If you could just hand them like, we'll have about 4 questions and then drop it right back in. Nice one.
Yeah, so I guess my question is about more tangible things. So with all the work that you've done, exactly how are the people accepting it as far as, let's pretend that we're talking about real estate then, and that you show a client a 360 video, VR view of that report, plugin, whatever it happens to be, and do you have any data on, does this actually help sell something? Is there anything, I went to SBVR and I saw Matterport's presentation, and they claimed that people who saw Matterport real estate stuff, apparently they stuck around longer to actually go to the showing, or they converted to give an email or something like that. Like, exactly, would people that do real estate, would they want to go ahead and actually convert, people that look at these VR things for real estate, do they actually convert? What is the point of all this, I guess?
I think we have the most data on these things because we have a platform around the world. There are 2 things. One is, what was mentioned is that realtors or brokers win more deals because they can go to a client and say, oh, we are doing this feature in VR, in 360 with the drone, and get the listing. This is a very fact. As a broker, you win more deals on one side. On the other side, it's very natural that you have like a 360 tour versus a picture. You just look at the picture in a 360, you move in the picture. So you stay much more longer there. Because you're going into it, you navigate around it, you have more information. You don't have to scroll the whole website up and down to see, for example, what is the energy consumption of this thing, or what is, this is a fridge, or where you're looking out the windows, you move to the window and look out. So you spend much more time and it's much more engaging for everybody. So you see, even with the quality of the pictures going up and the readers putting more time and effort into it, that people are staying on these pages. A lot of those things is used in markets which are hot because realtors want to win the listing, but in these markets, houses go away anyway. What you can do is mostly get a better price or just engage people really to say, okay, you have more objects to show. And the third thing, I have a few seconds, is that you can pre-select your audience by showing it. So you can show 5 apartments with a tour to somebody and decide, oh, this kitchen is totally ugly, I never would buy this. Or this bathroom is totally shitty because you can see it. So you just go down as a realtor or broker to get 2 houses which your client likes. So you have less commute time for your client and yourself, so you do a better job and everybody is more happy.
Thank you, Mo. Next question? Go ahead.
I'm just wondering generally about the cost of modeling interior environments, because I know quite a few places who are doing selling of real estate or very expensive mansions. I think Sotheby's is doing something like that, because I think currently it's pretty expensive to do realistic renderings of internal environments. Is there anyone out there doing, so I guess it's a two-part question. One is how much does it cost with, say, Matterport, for example, or with your technology as well? to mock up an internal space? And secondly, is there anyone, any realtors using VR in the mid-level market? So anyone displaying their VR houses in the Midwest for a house that only costs $100,000 instead of these really expensive mansions or these big commercial spaces?
So I can answer that a little bit. The pricing really ranges, and so there's two things I want to get to in your question. One is the pricing, briefly, and then the other thing is using it for the mid-market. Now, it depends on what you're creating. So if you're going in and you're doing a Matterport scan, people's prices are all over the place. They're somewhere between 7 cents a square foot or 5 cents a square foot to 50 cents a square foot. And so it really depends. And it depends on what market you're in. It depends on if that person is taking triple the scans, because they're going to they know that they want to be able to turn it into VR later. And so they're taking different sweet spots around the room. But again, it's what are we calling VR? Because if you go in with a Ricoh Theta, which is a $350 camera, and you're taking a picture that's in 360, well, you don't have to pay anything for that to be VR, because it's native VR. It's automatically VR. And you can put that into something like Round Me or Walk Into, and you can have a tour immediately. So it just depends on how much, I think, editing you want to do, how much what does somebody want. And I don't think that it's going to be, at some point, I don't think it's going to be a question of price. I think that every home that is for sale, every space, whether it's even a private space or a public space, will have this. It shouldn't be a question of price eventually. And but right now it's definitely the higher end of the market.
Thank you. I'm just saying, HoloBuilder is giving the tours to everybody. So this with a 360 picture, so we see the low end. So we have even a slum in Nairobi.
Right.
Okay, so the Philippines, very simple houses, so people can do it with a 360 cameras on their phones, and use the app, preview app, to make a 360 picture and upload it and connect them to a tour and put information to it. So it's immediately see on desktop and then the camera or smartphone. So this is very cheap, and it goes up to the Metaport or laser scans.
Two more.
Just a quick question. I have two of them. One is, how do you think the Matterport can compete with a lot of the Google photographers that are going out there to small businesses? And the other question is, how do you feel about real estate industry and how Matterport affects the buyer experience when the buyer essentially experiences the home as opposed to actually going there? I think it's kind of counterintuitive in which it's a double-edged sword, which, when you step into a new car, you're experiencing it. You don't get that with Matterport. You kind of do, but do you think it kind of deters away from the buyer actually purchasing the house because of experiencing Matterport?
I think that it depends who you ask. If you ask the realtor, they're always going to want to be able to take that person through and do the sales pitch. So you're missing that moment where the person is being guided by a real estate professional and they're on their own touring space. So that's a little bit of it depends who you're asking. If you ask me, well, I think that Matterport actually gets you to your better buyers because they will have seen it, they're not going to waste your time, and also it's a little bit more realistic. So the only complaint is sometimes that people think, well, there's a wide angle lens, and so it makes a room look slightly larger. Well, I promise you that a realtor is going to hire the best photographer that they can afford to take the most fabulous edited Photoshop Lightroom photo, because it makes people excited, and then they get to the space and they're totally disappointed because it looks nothing like it. So I think that it depends. And then your first question was?
It was pretty much how, essentially, can the medical photographers compete with the Google side? I mean, these guys are pretty much going out there and they're doing straight service, in which it was like, oh, they don't have any hosting fees, and yada. So it gets kind of hard to get out there and say, look, this is a premium service that we're actually pitching to you guys. That's actually, includes depth and it actually increases the experience. There's no distortion. as opposed to the Google side, which, obviously the distortion.
Well, the Google photography program, they have now actually included Ricoh Thetas as one of the cameras that you can use, and so really those are for public spaces, and so I think that you're looking at, they're also being a Google standard for the way that those are shot, and if you want to do anything beyond that, or you want to shoot a private space and you want that space to be unlisted and not on Google's servers, well then you need to do it with a different kind of technology. So that's the many Google photographers, trusted photographers also do Matterport and vice versa. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, one more question?
We'll talk about that, Ken. I actually want to use the questions that they just asked to build on. One more question? Okay. I guess not. So two questions were about numbers. One of them was how expensive is it going to be for the clients, and what numbers do we have to show that virtual reality is actually making an impact? And combining those two, how do you show that you're having an impact, you're creating more sales, and it's worth the price? So proving the price, obviously the price is going to go down, it's going to get easier as technology improves, content is better and faster, more quickly created. But what's that challenge like today? And what technologies do you see moving forward? A lot of questions at once. So we'll move on to that question. But what technologies do you see that will help the process get more efficient and less expensive?
So in regards to like the fees or what it would cost, we're really, as Gensler, we're trying to integrate as part of our design process. So it's not necessarily looked at as like a service. So I can't say that that's a specific number I have. But how it's sort of adopted or how it's being used long term, I think that's really when it's being shown in a presentation to a client as, and I guess this would go for real estate as well, is that the user that's going to experience it, it's not a first time thing, right? Like here you guys are getting the opportunity to see these Google cardboards that are being passed around, you possibly get to go and buy, and the next time you experience it, just like when I first started, every experience builds on that, and you become more versed, you become more, you understand it. You need a little less of that sort of briefing that I mentioned earlier when you get into these virtual reality experiences, and you just, as the client has a level of expectation, when they come together, for instance, and we, presenting a design and it's being presented in whatever medium, they have a level of expectation. They want to see their design, they want to see it now, they want to see it, what's it going to look like, show me the final image, but at some point you kind of have to reel it back and show them that process, and the virtual reality is really allowing us to show them that process.
Yeah, so when you present it to a client, have you had it get too expensive? Whether it's the architecture or the visual on building, the user experience going through the property. Have you had it get too expensive that we're like, oh, that's not something you can pay, you don't have a budget for that, but if it was this price or anything like that where the cost was an issue?
Sure, yeah, people will say that they don't want to pay for something, but it just really depends.
Often?
No, it doesn't actually. It's happened a few times. It happens more in the commercial real estate space, actually, because, and also these are places that are going to be totally gutted and that are going to be transformed and remodeled right away. So do you want to invest in making a really high-end VR of something that's not going to look like that in 6 months, hopefully? So, that would be perhaps where these guys would come in and say, well, we're going to show you not what a built space looks like, but what it will look like. But I wanted to get back briefly to the empirical data question, and I just don't think we have enough research yet. I think that from the advertising world, I think it was Saatchi who said, I know that 50% of my advertising works if I only knew which half. And I think that we're kind of in that same realm of trying to understand how the VR is working. We have data, like how many times somebody loaded my 3D space and looked at it and interacted with it, but I don't know what they're thinking. So I just think we're needing more research done in that area.
Well,
I think price will change dramatically. So we started with a free version, everybody free using it, and still we make it more expensive a little bit, but everything will be cheap. With the 360 cameras, it will be cheap. And I think the Google photographers, with the 360 cameras or new things coming, we eat a lot of of the market of Matterport. And Matterport will change the business model differently. So I think the next product, or what they will do is that you may scan, and then you can choose which furniture is got out of the room, and you place new furniture, so they get into more to the furniture business. So they sell more of furniture placing because you have a 3D space, and you can put extensions to that space because you have it in a 3D environment. So this will change totally their business model because the photographers in the 3D space for the realtors, brokers, will be much easier with the 360 pictures. So this is some changes coming into the pricing and more different features we will see in the future.
Great, so as we close out, what's your half-crazy, counterintuitive prediction for virtual reality in the real estate industry in the next 5 years? Living in virtual reality, never actually buying a house.
No, but we were going to talk about that. We were going to talk about open houses, and I think that we didn't quite touch on that so much. And I think that it's not crazy. It's happening now. I just think that you're going to start seeing people go, oh wait, I can have an open house that's virtual. I can start doing things in a completely different way. So I just think that a lot of the mainstays of the real estate industry, like we're going to have our broker tour on Thursdays, and we're going to have our open house on Saturday from 2 to 4, and on Sunday from 2 to 4. That may be disrupted. This is residential real estate, of course, but VR will enable that. And so that's what I think is going to happen, is that all of a sudden people who are not paying attention will sort of go, oh wait, I guess I have to do that now. And that's what I think is going to happen.
Right.
Um, I can chime in on, I guess, the real estate side, because as a resident of the Bay Area, I think it's the biggest challenge is finding an apartment or a home. I'm sure I've seen some of you guys who are fighting for the first application. And I see it as a great way to be able to navigate to many locations in a very short amount of time. And that also goes for architecture. It goes for anything within the real estate business, right? Commercial. To be able to go around the world in properly documented spaces, scanned, photographed, etc. That's kind of priceless. And I kind of want to touch also on the question from the audience about sort of what the value is of, is it taking back from the experience of going to a house? And I think what's allowing you to do is make informed decisions about what you want to go see. Versus, I'm sure you're, again, from the Bay Area, you've been in those homes and you did not want to see that, right? So it's just like if you're going to purchase a car, you're not just going to, well, you may, but you probably won't go to dealership to dealership to dealership all on a Saturday. You'll probably know going into it, oh, I want to see these 3 models from this dealership, and I want to go to this dealership. And then it may become, a bargain thing. You're then hunting for the best price. But you're making informed decisions just like when you shop and everything else. So these are the experiences you can probably do. You can make more informed decisions. And I don't think, and I also hope that we don't live in virtual reality, right? That's not, I think, the goal of it. It's to be able to make more informed decisions about our lives. I mean, that's really what your smartphone has done. It's enabled you to do something more.
I know a lot of people.
Nice.
So 2 friends. One actually lived in VR for 100 hours, and yeah, he posted on Reddit and Twitter, and well, his friends did because he couldn't. But and then another wants to build communities about 4 hours from San Francisco that allow you to work in virtual reality and get the high-speed trains to be able to shuttle you back and not actually be in the city, because we all know that the weather is not the best here for various other reasons. But I agree, it's like virtual reality is able to take you into a different world, but people will want to, or will appreciate the other world more, will want to stay in it. Well?
This is a bet, that you're making. I think IKEA have that every apartment can look good. And I think with virtual reality and augmented reality, it will help that people can have even worse apartments and be happier. I have now moved from Germany. I have now a very small apartment here, but I'm on a 29th or 28th floor, and I have the greatest view over the whole city. So it's great. I was never so happy with a small place because I can go there, sit on a balcony, and see the whole city. for me it's like VR. So I get out of work, I'm sitting there, totally different work. I think for most people it will be the same, so you can have a small place, but yeah, who cares if I get at 8 at home, I will be for 3 hours in VR and then go to sleep. What do I care how the rest of my apartment looks like? So this will be decisions we will see, which also will have impact on real estate, maybe in 10 years or 8 years, definitely.
Right, and when virtual reality surpasses our life, which it's very easily able to, will we be happy when we come back to real life? So that's a question to think about. Do we have any other questions from the audience before we close out? Nope. All right, great. One more.
I comment. I got my Oculus Rift about a week ago. Started to spend a lot of time recently in virtual worlds. And one thing that I noticed actually is that we appreciate real reality more after getting out of virtual worlds. I was in the real world for a long time, there's some social media chatting things and also some really much games. But then afterwards I went through a run through Golden Gate Park. And as I was going through Golden Gate Park, I was like, wow, this all looks so real.
Yeah.
I was viewing it as a virtual mind's eye. I mean, I really appreciate it when I was running past the
More pigments.
What's that?
More pigments.
More pigments.
Your eyes.
But what about when the screen has enough pigments and it does look virtually real?
Well, that's what I'm saying. With the one thing that I noticed was missing the virtual world, which I really appreciated during my run, is I was running by the stream. There was like a low hanging branch with leaves in it, and I kind of like high-fived the tree in a way. I just like jumped up and hit the leaves. And that was really satisfying, way more than it had been before, because I reached out and touched the environment, and it touched me back. And it just made me feel really warm again in my environment, which I just wasn't expecting to happen. So it's kind of
Very cool. All right, let's close it out. Please give a round of warm welcome.